you can actually turn wealth into a virtue. And you can turn it into a vice. That's the cool thing about it being an indifferent. Money. How much time do you spend thinking about money, about finances, about which bills you're going to pay, your mortgage, your rent, light bill, phone bill, internet bill? Man, oh man, there's so many bills. But money, as a general topic, finances, personal finances maybe, it's something that I think takes up a lot of mental energy for just the average person. And the reason is somewhat obvious because, well, you have to have some money to pay your bills and your rent and et cetera, et cetera. You need a bit of money to, live and maintain the standard of life that you have. But money, like everything in Stoicism other than virtue and vice, it's not good or bad. It's an indifferent. It's morally indifferent. And so how can we reconcile wealth as a Stoic? If you were to look at the Stoics whose writings we have, right? We have Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus. 2 out of 3 of those were wealthy. Very wealthy. 1 out of 3 was quite poor. He was a slave for a while. But the fact that we have a Stoic that is poor and a Stoic, 2 Stoics even, that are really wealthy, it kind of shows just how versatile this philosophy is, which is, it's a pretty interesting thing because not all philosophies can transcend the different social hierarchies, right? So it's a pretty cool thing. All that to say that it's proof that Stoicism is compatible with being wealthy or living in poverty, and that really it's an indifferent because you can, in fact, be just fine with lots of money or with little money. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should just burn your money, right? You should just burn it in front of you and drain your bank account and waste it. You should think about money as something that is not actually yours. You should think of yourself more as a custodian of your money, of your wealth, in the sense that, like any other material possession, it's not something that you really own. It's not something that you really have. It's something that you're kind of borrowing, perhaps. Not that borrowing money is a good idea. Don't do that. But borrowing in the sense of, let's say, spiritually borrowing. You're here in this world. You're living this worldly life, and there's some money in your bank account. That doesn't mean that it's yours, because the only thing that's really yours is your character, right? That being said, clearly, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, clearly both of those individuals had and were able to keep money and wealth. And so just because something is an indifferent in Stoicism, it doesn't mean that you're irresponsible with it. This is a very important distinction. It's like your health. To a large degree, your health is not up to you because you're born with genetics. A lot of diseases can come and go. You can develop cancer for seemingly no real reason at all. But that doesn't mean you don't care about it. That doesn't mean that you eat junk food every night, that you never exercise because, hey, to hell with my health. Of course not. That doesn't mean you don't care about it. In the same sense that externals like money, like, I don't know, for example, your mother, just because your mother is an external, does not mean that you don't care about her. So what does it mean? Something being an external, money, your mother, means that ultimately that is not what brings you peace, eudaimonia, happiness, whatever word you want to call it. It means that if you have money, or if you do not have money, regardless of whichever side you fall on, you are not permitted as a Stoic to say that life sucks, to say that this is bad. In the same way that if and when, or maybe if perhaps your mother has already passed away, just because someone you love and care about has passed away does not mean that you don't care about that, but it does mean that you are not permitted as a Stoic to say, this is bad. Because the only good or bad thing is your character. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow, man. That's a really hard pill to swallow. It's a shocking thing. It's one of those Stoic beliefs that can kind of shake you to your core. The idea that having money and not having money is equivalent. It's indifferent. In the same way that the person who gives away all their money, right? That's a generosity put to the extreme. It goes back to the intentions. Why? Why are you doing it? Why are you giving away that money? And the intention obviously is linked directly to virtue, to character. It's a manifestation of character. All that to say, money is not good or bad. You can be a good person with lots of money. You can be a bad person with lots of money. And every other which way. Every step on the wealth spectrum, you can be a good or bad person. But I did mention that it doesn't mean that you don't care about it. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. And so how do we do that? Because you could argue in some strong sense that being wasteful with your money, buying vehicles you can't afford, going out to eat at fancy restaurants you can't afford too frequently, you could argue that that's not really practicing Stoicism, because part of Stoicism is temperance, it's moderation. Now, if you have the money, let's say you're a multimillionaire. I have lots of multimillionaires listening to this podcast. Let's say you're a multimillionaire and you can afford a Tesla. There's nothing wrong with buying a Tesla. There's absolutely nothing wrong with buying a Tesla. And there's actually nothing wrong, if you're a multimillionaire, with buying a beater car, a POS. So what is the difference here? The difference is the story we tell ourselves. about the purchase. You see, some people, many people, they place so much importance on the things they have, so much value. They take joy from the vehicle they're driving. They put a lot of moral value into that. The Stoic, on the other hand, they might purchase a beater car, they might purchase a Tesla, but they would not fool themselves into thinking that that vehicle is responsible for their happiness, for their flourishing. So it's really like the story we tell ourselves about the purchase. So you can have, let's say, the worldly goal of, I want to own a Tesla someday. You can have that as a goal, but you can't call it a Stoic goal. And you can't have that goal supersede your current most important goal of becoming and being a Stoic, of acting appropriately. And you can be under no illusion that having this car is going to make any difference whatsoever in your life. And so let me give you a little bit of practical advice. I got a few more minutes left of this episode. I want to give a little bit of practical advice on wealth management. First of all, the Stoics say you can be happy with less. You can be happy with less. You don't need to spend all this money on X or Y. You don't need to upgrade your vehicle every year. You don't need to buy super fancy clothes. You can be frugal. You can even be a frugal person. And again, this is practicing temperance and stoicism. It's practicing tempering desires, because desires can run out of control. And so step one, doesn't hurt to be a little bit frugal, man. It doesn't hurt. Step two, well, if we are going to, let's say, desire wealth in the long term, and because it's an indifferent anyway, why not take a little bit of your paycheck every time you get paid and put it somewhere? Put it somewhere. Again, practicing temperance, but also practicing just the ability to delay gratification. I mean, living below your means, which is really what you need to do if you're going to save and invest and not buy things you can't afford. Living below your means, it's good at obviously being wealthy, but also being stoic. So save, keep a little bit aside. And the last little bit of advice I guess I will give you, I don't want to call it financial advice. This is absolutely not financial advice. But there is a virtue, not a cardinal virtue, but there is a virtue called generosity, which we mentioned earlier. You can actually turn wealth into a virtue. And you can turn it into a vice. That's the cool thing about it being an indifferent. You can have a lot of money, and you can use that money to invest in the drug trade and make even more money. Or you can have a lot of money, you can be wealthy, and you can do a little thing called donate. Be generous. Go buy some gift cards for your local grocery store and drop them off at some homeless shelters. You can be generous with your money, which is an interesting contrast to this whole thing about wealth development. But it's true that people who are generous tend to get it back in full effect. Call it karma. Call it virtue rewarding you through worldly rewards. So is it stoic to think about wealth development? Absolutely not. I mean, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they were very wealthy. And sure, they would have had investments. Maybe not in the way that we have today, mutual funds and growth stock funds and all this, but they would have had their money into assets. And there's nothing wrong with you seeking stability, developing your wealth to the point where you can be whatever you want, financially free, financially stable, be able to pay your bills, be able to be generous. But you can only do that and be a stoic if you have your compass pointed north, and north is virtue. So, in everything you do in life, as a stoic, as long as virtue is the only good, as long as I'm not fooling myself, lying to myself, tricking myself into generating wealth and telling myself that, oh, once I have $100 saved up and $1,000 saved up and $100,000 saved up, once I get there, I'm going to be happy. No, that's BS. And I know it and you know it. And all the Stoics knew it. So generate wealth if that's something that's interesting to you, but never lose sight that virtue is the only good.